Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Earlier this week, we published a video on the World Economic Forum, highlighting what it claims its mission and objectives are. But today, we're having a discussion with controversially Greg, yes, we haven't heard from him for over a year, about the WEF and the sinister motives that he believes underlies it. I have to point out this is his personal opinion and does not necessarily reflect the view of this channel. Nevertheless, he has the right to say what he believes, and we give him that right. It is a long podcast / video. At the 15-minute stage, things get quite exciting, and if you can, please do listen to it all. But whatever happens, we would very much appreciate it if you would subscribe and press the bell sign and hopefully give us a thumbs up. Let's now go over to that interview with Greg. Greg, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I do still exist. Rumours of my demise are greatly exaggerated.
Exactly. It's been well over a year since we've done an interview, Greg. And what better a subject than to discuss the World Economic Forum, an organization that claims that it is in favor of public-private cooperation, established in 1971, headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. It states that it's independent, impartial, and not tied to any special interests. And basically, their activities, according to their website, are shaped by a unique institutional culture founded on the stakeholder theory, which asserts that an organization is accountable to all parts of society. What say you, Greg, about the WEF?
I think their PR is superlative. They have taken half-truths and outright lies and made them sound very plausible. The WEF is a follow-on from Europagesellschaft, which was the 1942 paper, which means European Economic Union, that was brought out by the Nazis. And it was realized in 1942 that they weren't going to win the war. And it was based on how will we win the peace. That was followed on to some extent by the Kalergi Plan, which you can also look up on Wiki. There are desperate attempts to make it seem like a conspiracy theory made to try and obfuscate it, much the same as are now made about the WEF. To speak against it is fairly dangerous because they have unlimited money, and I mean unlimited, with backers like Bezos, Gates, and the like. It is a privately run organization. The only publicly recognized director of it is the founder, Klaus Schwab. And Klaus Schwab announced its foundation, although there are reasons to believe it was running for some time prior to 1971. Klaus Schwab is now in his early 80s. He has become a massive owner of land and property around Geneva, and he pays himself $500,000 a year out of the charity he runs, which is the World Economic Forum. I don't know who else is paid. I can't seem to find anything to access any kind of financial records. Presumably they're filed under Swiss secrecy laws. The WEF itself is also another large owner of property and land around Geneva. If you look at his holdings, there's no ways he could reasonably or rationally have made them. His father was a very senior SS general And rather confusingly, for their policy of as espoused by the SS, his wife was one of the Rothschild sisters. That's the immediate background. The organization is set up and has brought in numerous exceedingly wealthy families. Families like Bill Gates, who, as the informed will be aware, was a wealthy young man as a result of his father's wealth, who was funded by his father, shall we say, acquired the software from IBM, which he modified for PCs. And that was Microsoft, the foundations of, which has made him somewhere in the region of $200 billion. There are others like him. There are also numerous puppets. They've used very clever techniques. One of their puppets is a direct relation of Klaus Schwab's, one Greta Thunberg, who is related, and you may be aware that her father was Ahoysen, Svante, and that's developed from Svante Ahoysen, his direct line ancestor, who was a member of the Nobel Committee and awarded himself 1903 prize for physics for discovering the term global warming, and also pretending that he knew how much carbon dioxide there was in the atmosphere at a time when there was no means of measuring it. He also provided the world with exactly how many tons of carbon dioxide would result per 1 degree of temperature change. That's a bit of the background on the organization. The fact that it's utterly undemocratic and the regular boast of the World Economic Forum made by Klaus Schwab, and I noticed that it was also made by Tony Blair, who is at the moment angling to become his replacement when he retires or dies. Their proud boast is that they have influence in the cabinets of every single major government on the planet. I think this is a very dangerous situation. I believe that hidden behind this is a strong element of eugenics. We are already seeing experimentation in clampdowns, and it is notable that Pfizer have just been found guilty in the courts of misleading governments and the public regarding their supposed vaccine, and they have been thrown out of Thailand because it has been proved that their vaccine has managed to put a princess of the royal household into what would appear to be a lifetime coma. The whole thing, in my opinion, is not just suspect, but downright dangerous. Their website is absolutely superlative. Every I is dotted and every T is crossed to make sure that it can lead the gullible by the nose along the path they want. Do you want to be in your home, which you won't own, will be effectively a prison cell with an exercise yard that means you can travel for 15 miles in 15 minutes in any direction, but you will not be allowed to travel further without paying or penalties. Already this experiment is underway to a greater or lesser extent in London, Bristol, Oxford, Chichester, and mooted for Cardiff, and somewhere like 20 other conurbations in Britain. I find it horrific.
Before, Greg, we go on to the individual sort of recommended policies of the forum, when you said that there's a degree of lack of transparency or awareness of the people who are heading it up, that's not strictly true, because they do announce all 29 trustees of the forum, which contain notable people such as Al Gore, Christine Lagarde.
That should put you off for a starter.
Yes, but they do announce them. Christine Lagarde, Lawrence Fink, the CEO and chairman of BlackRock, and then they highlight who the actual board consists of, and it's run by, if I pronounce his name correctly, the president, which is Borg Brent, and contains actually, I think it must be Mr. Schwab's son, Olivia M. Schwab is one of the 10 members of the board. So they are quite transparent in terms of saying who fronts that organization. So when you say it's secret, how is it secret if you actually know who's technically running it?
It's secretive in that technically you may know their names, but very few people actually know who they are, firstly. Secondly, there is no element of democracy that put them there. They are a collection of power brokers. Thirdly, as you have pointed out, there's a strong degree of nepotism. Fourthly, it's a billionaires club. Fifthly, there is no sign of portals for input of any form of morality or ethics. Fifthly, I think we're up to five. Fifthly, their accounts are, I submit, a little bit like the Dead Sea Scrolls, i.e. it takes you a very long time and a great deal of effort to possibly be able to find them hidden away. And then it takes you even longer to unroll the things to see what the hell's in there. Where are the accounts? Where is the transparency that any governing body on a global basis has to show to its electorate? Where has anybody selected any of their policies? They are imposed from the top down without visible vote or discussion.
Right, I'm going to give you some pushback. First of all, as an individual, I could join them for free and get access to part of their data. I could pay 30 euros a month and have access to more. Or I can pay 90 euros a month and have access to even more. Admittedly, corporations above a certain size have to pay anything from 60,000 Swiss francs to 600,000. So I agree with you there. But equally, the purpose, so they claim, is that they hold meetings and discussions on these topics. They have work groups, and then these work groups come up with recommendations. So how is that being dictated to from the top?
Because they're the people who are running it. When 1,000 private jets fly into Davos for the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, which is the Davos meeting, which is effectively chaired by Klaus Schwab, or has been. It wasn't this year, but it's thought that he's unwell. And when you get people like Tony Blair delivering keynote speeches, the man is a bloody war criminal. And we have seen that his protege, who used to work for him, Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand, and has just had to jump ship as Prime Minister, knowing that the alternative was she would destroy her party and it would be a complete wipeout at the elections in October. Look closely at the people who are involved. Not one of them would I want to go for a drink with.
So what policies are they adopting that cause you concern then, Greg?
Well, I've just named one. Do you really want to live within a 15-minute radius of your home? Do you really want to not own anything and be happy, which they dictate as a policy? Do you really want to be tied into this bizarre belief that mankind is destroying the climate when there is not a single solitary scientific peer-reviewed paper that makes that claim? Only employees who are paid to come up with the results that are required using computer modeling and selected data. Sorry, I think the whole thing stinks. I think their policies like net zero stand every chance of the destruction of civilization and driving mankind back to the Stone Age. And don't say it couldn't happen. It's happened before. We know that the great civilizations of the global world as it was then, Egypt, Phoenicia, Babylonians, the Hittites, And the other great nations, tribes, call them what you will, who were cooperating in a global structure at the time, at the end of the Bronze Age, suddenly, in as far as we can work out, 1177 before the birth of Christ, or the Christian era, were wiped out. We know very little of what happened, but it is attributed to the Sea People. Little is known of them, almost nothing is written of them, and there is very little contemporary history. But all those previously named nations and nation states and places like Göbekli Tepe were eradicated 1177 BCE. So it can happen again.
But Greg, these sorts of comments were made about Freemasonry, Bilderberg Group, Council on Foreign Relations, now the World Economic Forum. Come on, you're just picking on a group. You're just picking on a group. Let me just finish. You're just picking on a group and saying, oh, well, because I'm not a member of it, it must be bad, surely.
I see nothing that needs to be conducted behind closed doors other than paedophilia. There's no need for secrecy or secrets in organizations that are meant to encompass numerous people. You look at the list of organizations that you just read out, and you'll find that most of them are considered deeply suspect in many areas and astonishingly well connected with each other.
But any man or woman can become a member. So how is it?
No, they can't. No, they can't.
I can join the WEF tomorrow for €30 a month.
Oh, they'll be glad of your money. And they'll be glad of your adoration, just the same as the Freemason. And you'll come in on common purpose, where you come in on the bottom level and you make contribution to show your commitment. You learn collections of rituals and greetings to keep it all secret and make you seem like a member of the Michael Jackson's Black Hand Gang. And that is at playground level, where you are surveyed by the next level to see if you will fit their structure, in which case you'll be promoted. But the majority of people are never promoted more than 2 or 3 of the 39 steps. And the further up the tree you get, the more clandestine and corrupt it would seem to get. And that pertains, it would appear, in most organizations, even the Bilderbergers, where Peter Mandelson was thrown out of government for corruption, but was still on the plenary committee of the Bilderbergers.
So you're not a fan, then, of the WEF?
I would say I can imagine no greater source of evil. The interlocking and interconnection of people we know to be deeply suspect all seem to meet in organizations like the WEF. And they are all dictatorial and they all demand. And the WEF, for instance, is demanding that we no longer travel. It's been decided that the WHO now has a global role and can order a lockdown in any or all countries in the world. Whether they be obeyed in any or all countries is a different matter. And they can command people use vaccines to be able to travel. What next?
On that note, Greg, thank you very much. It's been a joy, as always, to have a discussion with you. And I'm sure that our listeners will be in no doubt where you stand. Thank you, Greg. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.